Hello, this is Dan McKay with Implementation Specialist, and this is our webinar series. Today we'll be showing alerts, scheduled reports, and notifications. I know I'm a couple minutes early here, just getting the ball rolling. We'll give it a minute or so for people to log in. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can raise the hand or unmute your phone and say something. Today's topics will be using the system to provide automated alerts and scheduled reports. Okay, let's get started. Today, as I said earlier, we are part of the Implementation Specialist webinar series, and we'll be working on alerts, scheduled reports, and notifications. So we'll get started. What we're going to cover today is homepage notifications, business alerts, and how to schedule reports in GP using the report scheduler. Also, take a peek at that in MR and SSRS. So start with homepage notifications. This is something most people are likely familiar with. So in GP, if you have the to-do panel selected as part of your homepage layout, you've already seen the reminders. Let me bring this up. We'll get to this report schedule here in a second. But as you see here, I have a to-do, I have my reminders, I have tasks, and I have reminders. And when I click on new reminder, I'm not going to get to do anything until I answer this. Let me say yes to this, and we'll come back to that. New reminder. So you can see I have these smart lists, predefined reminders, with reminding and showing as a queue, and I can do custom reminders and have those show up as well. So as you see here on the reminders, if we click on the reminder, it will open it in Smart List. I can see the items, and from there, most of these typically have a go-to. Will take me right to the item itself in question. So this is one way to have alerts. You go in and create custom reminders, adjust the ones that are there, have your own custom smart lists. You can set these up and have your reminders show up on your home page for you. And as you see, we open the reminders in Smart Lists and open the Smart List itself. You may notice also a task list. The task appears on the list until somebody marks it complete. You can set up recurring tasks and all the way from daily to annually, and you can include a link to what is associated with that task. So I'll show you this. Let's switch back to GP. I have these tasks. I can create a new task. I can look at existing ones, and I can add a new task, set up the recurrence for it, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, every day, 7 days a week, 5 days a week. This schedule should look familiar to you if you've scheduled recurring meetings in Outlook, other applications like that. I can set up my tasks. And I can have a link to a GP window that says, say, if I wanted to do an employee review or something like that, here's the review window you need to go to, or a web page to remind me to go check a portal for some invoices or something like that, or even run an external program. I'm going to assign it to a user, and that user will be notified on their homepage. So on the task itself, as soon as the status changes to completed, it is no longer shown. If this is a recurring task, it will generate recurrences, and when you mark each one completed, then the next recurring one will show up. Any questions on this so far? I'm unmuting people as I can here. Go ahead and self-mute if you wish to, if you wish. Okay. All right, next slide. Business alerts. So with business alerts, this has been in the product for some time. Business alerts allow you to set up to alert individual users when they log in, or also through email through using SQL Mail. So we will show you how to set up business alerts. Has a really nice wizard to set it up. But one thing to note is business alerts go deep into the tables. So you need to be familiar with the table names and the columns. It doesn't give you necessarily nice names for tables. It gives you the names the developers are accustomed to and the column names. So you need to have that level of familiarity with the data that you're trying to work with. We'll get one of these started here. Look at an existing one. Everyone spot over like this, business alerts. Modify an existing alert. You can see I can modify an existing alert. There are quite a few alerts in the system that you can start with to modify or get a look at how to use them. Give it an ID, give it a description, indicate the tables that you're going to use. You notice here it gives it by the table name, and down here I'm going to have a table SQL name, like the account index master, the GL00105. And then how the tables are joined together. They're joined on the account index. And then the business alert formula itself. This formula wizard, it's roughly similar to the one you may see in a report writer. When I set up my alert, it says here my period balance is greater than my budget amount. And when this condition is true, then the alert fires. And in this case, I'm going to send it to a user ID. I can send it to user 1, however I want that. And it can include a report. As soon as you include a report, then you pick a table, you have the report columns, and also the sorting, the sort orders for the report, and how frequently you want to check for the condition. This is checked on the SQL Server itself. So what Business Alerts does is create an alert into a table, and the Business Alert table is a process that runs on the SQL Server, runs the report conditions, and if anything is true, it sends it out. And here you see a checkbox to enable it or disable it, whether it's going to run. Go to the next slide. So you see we went through some sample alerts. One thing to note is that only the tables that are available in the Dynamics dictionary that's the only tables that are available to start with. To create alerts for other dictionaries, we need to add the tables. This is a little confusing and can be confusing if you're dealing with, say, HR or manufacturing or a third-party integrating product such as the Key to Act signature series. You're going to need to add the tables into Business Alerts wizard in order to pick them. So to do this, we'll go into Tools, Utility, System, Business Alerts. So Tools, Utility, System, Business Alerts. You pick the dictionary that you want to add. And these are the dictionaries out of your set file. So in the case, say, human resources or manufacturing, any of these others, I can pick it, pick the series, look at the available tables, find the tables that I want to use in a business alert. If I needed a particular table, I would pick the table, insert it into here, and then it's available for the alerts once I process it. Process, now it's added. So now, when I create business alerts, I can also link to the HRM Solutions series table for the future effective life premium. Any questions business alerts wise? We covered in the wizard joining the multiple tables on a common column, using the formula wizard to create the condition to trigger the alert, and adding the columns and the sorting options. So should you want to send the business alert using email, you need to log into an Exchange server, and it uses the default profile setup in SQL DB Mail. You have to have SQL DB Mail set up, enabled, and a default profile set. And that default profile is what is used to send the emails. To pick the emails will come from an Exchange server when you log into the Exchange server. So to see that is when we are in the Business Alert Wizard itself. When we click this, these are the emails we're going to see. Based on when we go to the email, then this button will bring up the emails. And so I have to log into my Exchange server so I can pick the emails from there to set them in there. Otherwise, if user ID, it will notify the user the next time they log in if there is an alert for them or an alert that's assigned to them. Any questions on this? Okay. Next topic. And we covered this as well. All right, we'll move on to scheduled reports. When I first started Dynamics GP, you may have remembered there was a message on the screen that said publish the reports, yes or no. That was part of the scheduled reports. It was telling me that I had reports scheduled that I was responsible for, and it was ready to publish them. So scheduled reports is part of the default installation of Dynamics GP. So if you have Dynamics GP, you have scheduled reports. It allows you to send a text report to a shared folder. We will look at this. We'll set one up. We'll look at one that's set up. So here's my default location for my reports. I'm going to put them onto my OneDrive for Business. So my OneDrive here in Implementation Specialist, which I have synchronized with my local C drive. So it's in my profile on my machine. It's going to publish it there. And then as the folder is synchronized with OneDrive, this is available on my OneDrive for Business. My next report name is incremented in this case, and it's going to be exported as a text file. Notice I can have tab delimited, comma delimited, or an HTML file. So this sets up the report scheduler. And report schedule, see my retained earnings for my financial report. This has been set up. There are a lot of the setup for you. You can pick them from the list and schedule them. So you notice this one is scheduled, and it's going to publish to that location, and it's running every day. And that was what I had published. And you can see here, there is the file that was copied. And today, 12:07 p.m., so right about the time I started GP there, we have this file, and we have this report published. As you can see with this, it is dependent on the user logging in to GP. It will go and print the previous one once the user does log in, or it'll print the current one when the user does log in. But if someone's out for a week, you're not going to get your reports. So you pick who can publish which reports. There's some security set up to do this. And also and the report names. If you wanted to rename some of these reports, they have the original Dynamics GP name. If you want to name it something that is more specific to your company, you can rename it here, and that's what the file name will be called. Right. So, for good people, I'm going to mute everyone now if we have a lot of background noise, but I'll unmute when it's time for questions. Okay. Please raise your hand if there are any questions, and I will unmute you. On the webinar interface, there is a spot where you can indicate you raising your hand, and then I will spot that here. Okay. As you saw, we set up a report destination, we set up a schedule, and set this up per report. Some reports you'll run daily, some reports you may want to run monthly or even annually. And set up who runs which reports. Certain users may have the rights, and the user will need rights to the report to be able to run it. And the reports are run when the user logs into GP. And it can run reports that are past due if the user hadn't logged in. Like, say, for example, they're out for a week. And we saw this screen, which is where you schedule the frequency, very similar to what you saw in the business alerts. You pick the frequency and the start date and how often you want to run it. And in this particular case, it is always recurring. All right. Any questions here? Next topic will be scheduling reports in MR. So in MR, if you use MR and you're in the report designer, you can set up report schedules for individual reports, or if you have report groups defined, you can set up a report schedule. And it generates and publishes to the report library at the defined time. And they'll be available in your report viewer to see the latest one. This is something that will run even if nobody logs into the system. So if you're using MR, the advantage, well, if you're using MR, you have the big advantage of you're using MR reports instead of GP reports. And also, you have the advantage of it will publish these regardless of who logs in or who's on vacation. So on your report schedule setting, you'll notice you can do, like we covered, individual report or report group, you mark it as active, who is the scheduled owner, and to have permissions to run that report. And the recurrence, how often I want to run it, and what time I want to run it. Make sure that everyone has the data in, whether I'm running it in the middle of the night or whether I'm running it in the afternoon. And the recurrence can even have a end date. Then once the report fires at this time, it will fire every time, and it will be updated in the report viewer. So as you open the report viewer, you'll see your new reports. Any questions here? Okay. Move on to SSRS subscriptions. So if you're using SSRS reports, there is, if you set it up, there is a push notification to send to a file share or to an email. So people can subscribe to a report. If you have a favorite SSRS report and you want to receive it, you can have the report server push it out to you at a specific recurrence. If you set up the reports from within GP, you are going to need to change the security to use a new reporting account. Subscriptions require credentials that are stored on the report server, and the reports published by GP are going to need changes to the data source. If the data source needs a login that is not the username from GP. And you have options to configure your report parameters. I don't know how much of this people want to see. If you want to see how this is set up, because this gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, or pretty in-depth. I don't want to say complicated, but I want to say in-depth. We had to go in, and other clients that we work with will have a SSRS report runner account that is set up, and we set up a new data source for that, and we set up specific reports to run using that account so that the subscription model can run and send that to people. So this is another option to have reports published. No questions here? We'll have some Q&A at the end, which is coming right up. The last one, I'm really hoping this is working. I have been fighting with this all morning, and I'm sorry to say it is not. I'll bring it up on the screen. Yes. If you use Office 365, you may have noticed an app called Flow. I set up a Flow to email me whenever a new file lands in a specific location. Now, this being Office 365, that specific location needs to be in the cloud. Flow is pretty cool. I'm going to kill this one and try to launch it again. It is most unhappy with me today. Of course, yesterday it worked just fine. You've heard this before. This is what happens when I try to demo. So I have some screenshots here, and I have an email to show you. You can monitor OneDrive or SharePoint 365, or email messages, or hundreds of it. Their sources are amazing. Some of the examples they have are monitoring a Twitter feed. It checks once every 5 minutes. That's set. You don't get to modify that. It can send an email or a text message, or do several other things. There's hundreds of actions that are defined, including approvals. So what it looks like is I'm creating a flow. I found a flow that said send an email when a new file is added to OneDrive for Business. So I created the flow. It says when a file is created. When I set the configuration, I point to the OneDrive for Business folder for me. And it's going to send an email. I configure that, and it says send an email to me. And then when we get the new email, it looks just like this. So it tells me there was a new email updated on my OneDrive for Business, and even attaches it. So with this, you can see the page I've selected for open year-end column is invalid for retained earnings. That's my retained earnings report. Should have looked at that ahead of time. But this is the output I'm getting. So now I've been given an update that something's been published to my OneDrive for Business. I can see this, and I can catch this in time to go in and fix that so that I run the right report for the right year. So that is something that I would like to do another webinar on in the future on additional flows we can set up for Dynamics GP and Office 365 and cloud items that you may be using. All right. That covers the topics that we had with home page alerts, scheduled reports, SSRS subscriptions, and setting up scheduled reports in MR. Do we have any questions? Any additional demo you want to see? I will unmute everyone. My email is here on the screen and our phone number. If you think of any questions at some point later, please give us a call, give me an email, and we'll be happy to demo any of this, help you set it up. Thank you for attending. We'll see you in a future webinar. Thank you.